up, guys? Reapshow here. So today I wanted to do a discussion and ranking of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Love this franchise. Love Freddy. Can't wait to get into it. Before I do get into it, I want to briefly discuss the physical media releases that we've gotten. Starting off with the box set that I honestly grew up with. Such an iconic box set. I got it up there on the top shelf there. Love that box set. Honestly, it's probably the pinnacle of physical media for Nightmare on Elm Street. You get each film in its own case, and it just, the presentation of it is top notch. The major thing that brings it down for me is just the fact that it's DVD. Since then, this is the best that they can do, Warner Brothers. And because Warner Brothers bought New Line, so they essentially have the rights to the distribution of this franchise. So disappointing. I'll never really understand why they have done so little with this franchise in terms of physical media. I mean, they've done variations of this collection, but none of them are really that impressive. And they honestly really haven't done that many releases of each individual film. Obviously we do have the 4K coming out pretty soon of the original film, which is great. Obviously I'm gonna get it. To me it's a little bittersweet because it's a little bit tough. You get the 40th anniversary of the original film, and it's kind of a little too late to just be releasing the first film. But at least they're doing it, and it's about time, because this is really the best they can do, and this is not even close to what this franchise deserves, especially for physical media collectors. Doesn't even include the remake. I know a lot of people don't like the remake, and I'll get into my thoughts on it, but it's part of the collection. It's part of the franchise. It should be included. So like I said, I know that Scream Factory was working on a box set at one point, and Warner Brothers pulled the plug. They said they wanted to do it in-house, and this was back in 2020 when they were about to release the Friday the 13th box set. Warner Brothers pulled the plug, said that they wanted to do it in-house, and 4 years later, we're just now getting news that they're gonna finally release the original film on 4K, which is cool, but it's like I said, it's just how long do we have to wait for the sequels? Are we ever gonna get the sequels? I just want to see a box set of this franchise. I don't know if we'll ever get that. But that remains to be seen. I really hope we do. Until then, we still have a Blu-ray collection, and at least I have the films on Blu-ray. So without further ado, let's get into this here. So I've got my letterbox up right now. So 9 films in this franchise, starting off at the bottom of the barrel. What's it gonna be? Number 9, A Nightmare on Elm Street 2010. Now, interesting to me how each one of the big 3 horror franchises, meaning Halloween, Friday, and Nightmare, have one film in it that I just don't like. Most of the other films I enjoy on some level. Whether they're bad, great, I enjoy them on some level. This is the one film in the Nightmare franchise that I actively don't like, and I dread going back to. It's just such a drag. The characters are so just deadpan, and I get the approach because they're supposed to be tired and just drained and just comatose from not sleeping, and logically that makes sense. It's just not compelling at all. Rooney Mara is our, Nancy here, and she just doesn't work for me. Aside from even what she said about the franchise, she's, said some pretty choice words about the franchise, which is so strange to me that she said those things, where it's like, it was not that long after she did the film, so are you trying to kind of piss off your fan base? I just don't get that whole snobby approach, but nonetheless, I don't find her performance that captivating. I'm not saying it's bad, it's just not, I'm just not into it, The CGI in this film is just terrible, so unnecessary, so many of those effects could have been done practically, or you don't need to just openly copy the original. Try something different, do something a little more original. I know it's a remake, but if you're gonna retread a great scene, don't just do CGI instead of an incredible practical effect. It's gonna stick out like a sore thumb. Jackie Earle Haley, he's far from the worst thing in this film. I think that he does what he can. I think he does a solid job as Freddy. I just think the film around him is not good. There's aspects that I like about it. I don't completely hate it, but I really don't like this one. And it takes a lot for me to really actively dislike a Nightmare on Elm Street film. And what mostly bothers me about this film is that there's things that it goes for that it just doesn't commit to. They go for this whole backstory of Freddy where basically he's alluded to potentially being innocent, and that is an interesting approach, and they could have done something with that. I think that even if he was innocent, you could still make him a villain. He could have been originally innocent, but after he was killed, he's now vengeful, and he's just continuing to keep killing people that aren't responsible and had nothing to do with what happened. And that way he could still be a villain, but sort of be a victim, kind of in the vein of Jason, right? But they don't commit to it. In the end, he did what he was accused of, and they allude harder to he was a child molester instead of a child murderer. And that was hinted at in the original, but it was never outright stated. And I get it, but they don't do anything with it. It doesn't really ever serve a purpose, in my opinion. And like I said, it just doesn't really commit to what it sets up. But like I said, there are sequences I like. I like the micro nap sequence. I think that's awesome. How they're going in and out of dreams, from real world to dream world. I think that's pretty cool. And like I said, I think Haley's performance of Krueger is solid. Like I said, the film around him is just so bad that it's just it's hard to really appreciate it because it's just surrounded by such it's almost hard to describe it. It just feels like there wasn't a whole lot of passion put into this film, and that it just felt like a paint by numbers remake, and that is just not captivating. It just is not compelling to me. So it's disappointing to me that that's the last Nightmare film that we've gotten. It's kind of crazy to me that that is the last one that we've gotten, because this, the concept of Nightmare on Elm Street is so rich for not just more films, but a mini series. There's so much you could do with this world, and I just don't think they've ever really reached the potential of what this idea offers. But all that being said, Nightmare on Elm Street 2010, I don't ever see that coming up from number 9. Number 8. This is one that a lot of lists probably have at the bottom. It's an objectively bad film, you know, but I do enjoy it, and that is Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. I have like a weird nostalgia to this film because it's one of the first Nightmare on Elm Street films that I watched. Like I said, I rented all these movies from the library. It was essentially like I'd go and like whatever was available, I'd just rent it and I'd watch it again, you know? And a lot of times it was Freddy's Dead. Wonder why, right? And as a kid, I enjoyed it, right? Because it was not as scary. It was fun. It was goofy. It was funny. It was the one that was less scary, but it was a horror movie. So it was like a nice like gateway horror film, right? So I have like a strange nostalgia to this film, right? But it's bad. And what makes it bad is the fact that they made this strange decision to like end the franchise on like a joke. Like, this is a comedy, you know, in the vein of like Twin Peaks, which is interesting, but it's a flat out comedy. And it's like weird to me that they took that approach. Now, I understand in a way because Dreamchild did not really perform that well. And Dreamchild had some very serious elements within it. I'm not saying the whole film is serious, but some of the subject matter is pretty serious, and we'll get to that one. But I get the pivot going to more of a lighter tone, but to go full on Looney Tunes, I don't know, you know. The reason it has the edge over the remake for me is because it knows what it is and it actually commits to it. And I respect that more than not really going for something that you set up, you know, teasing it and not actually going for it. And Freddy's Dead, love it or hate it, it at least commits to what it sets up, right? You know, this movie's in 3D. It's really just the final, like, 15 minutes is in 3D, right? You know, the design of Freddy is terrible in this film. He's so brightly lit, and it's just not scary. And his, like, the design, like I said, the design of his face is bad. He's so brightly lit. Just the way they shoot the nightmare sequences are not that scary, you know? It's like he's just having a good time, and I would say, like, I don't hate the characters. I'm not saying they're great, but I don't actively dislike them. I have fun with it. There's elements that I like about it. You know, I like how they basically set things up to where, you know, all the kids have been killed in Springwood, and he's trying to get more kids to come to Springwood. And he essentially uses this John Doe character to kind of like lure these new kids in. I think that's interesting. There's a big time Twins Peak, you know, basically homage to Twins Peak, essentially, where, you know, they're in this town and they're all these like adults that have not seen children in like years, and they're like almost like crazy. You know, they go into the school and the guy's like talking to himself and like teaching a class of nobodies. And I think that is actually kind of fun, you know? It's kind of interesting. I like how they're stuck in this loop where they can't get out of this like town. I think that's kind of creepy, right? There's things in it that I do like, but Freddy is just so goofy in this one where it's just like, it's just not scary to me, especially the sequence where like he's got the power glove, and you know, they see him sitting there and he's just like so brightly lit, and it's not menacing because they just see him sitting there and they like turn the other way. It's like weird, honestly. Like, I can't remember a time where we've like seen Freddy just sitting down, brightly lit, and had the opportunity to like evade him. It's just so weird, honestly. like I said, hate the fucking design of his face. It's so bad. And like I said, the fact that they chose this tone to like be the final Nightmare film, which it's not the final one, but it did pretty much end the original franchise. And it's such a strange outlier to me, because it's like, it doesn't feel like a sequel to Dreamchild. It's like its own thing. And it's weird to me, because this is supposed to be the final Nightmare, and it's like, it feels like it has no connectivity to, it feels like it has no connective tissue to the rest of the franchise. So it's just kind of like always been a little weird to me. But that being said, I always have fun coming back to it. It's goofy and bad, but like, I don't know. Like I said, I have nostalgia towards it, and for me, it's fun, because I know that that's not how the franchise ended, so it doesn't bother me as much. But, if I saw this in theaters, I would be pissed off. I'd be like, this is how you're gonna end this franchise? It's become a joke. It's become a cartoon at this point. So, I've got mixed feelings on it, but like I said, I do enjoy it on a certain level. So, Freddy's Dead, number 8. Now, number 7, I've talked about this one in another list, and that is Freddy vs. Jason. Freddy vs. Jason is such a good time. It feels much more like a Nightmare movie than it does a Friday film. It's another one that kind of exists in its own little world, and I think that actually benefits it, because like I said before, it's got such a rich each franchise is so rich that if you tried to like bring in characters from each respective franchise, it would get a little convoluted. It would get it wouldn't be as streamlined. And also, it kind of is a game of balancing the franchises. It's, to where it's like, if you kind of keep it a little more in its own world, then it can kind of exist on its own, and there's not as much stakes in it, and then you can just have more fun with it. So I always have such a good time with this film. Freddy, I think, has a pretty good balance of humor and being dark and sadistic. I would say maybe a smidgen too much humor, but you do get dark and sadistic Freddy. I love when he just like ascends from the water. He looks like a straight up demon. Like his face, I love the facial design in that sequence. I think the makeup design overall is pretty good. I think that it's pretty creepy, and the fact that he was as old as he was and he did such an amazing job in Freddy vs. Jason, I'm like perfectly content with the fact that that is his last film. Would I like to see more with him? Of course, but at least it didn't end on Freddy's Dead, and we'll get to New Nightmare, which I really like, but I think it's a satisfying end to his Freddy Krueger reign. But like I said, I've already talked about Freddy vs. Jason. I enjoy it. It's definitely dated. It really fits into that like realm of the WWE, type action, but I have a good time with it, and I always enjoy coming back to it. So Freddy vs. Jason is number 7. Number 6. This is one that has always been interesting to me. I wouldn't say I've always loved it, but I've always been intrigued by this film, and that is Part 5, The Dream Child. I really enjoy The Dream Child in several different ways. Is it perfect? No, and we'll get to it, but it covers some pretty heavy themes. You get abortion, you get themes of rape in there. It's got this real gothic tone, where you kind of get into Amanda Krueger further. I'll tell you what, the like Freddy resurrection scene is absolutely incredible. I love that scene. It's so great. Love how he like comes back, you know, from this like strange like demon baby through this like dream sequence, and like I love how he's like morphing from the baby into Freddy, and like he's not entirely like formed into Freddy, as like one like strange long arm. I think that's really visually awesome, right? The visual effects in this film are incredible, and we'll get to them, but like for instance, the Dan sequence on the motorcycle is awesome. Even though part of it's cut down, I still love it. I would love to see the whole film in like, you know, just on a really good release. I mean, right now you can really only watch it on like YouTube. But I've always really enjoyed the Dream Child. I'll say like I really enjoy the characters. You know, Alice is an awesome final girl. This franchise has gotten really lucky with its final girls. You get Nancy, then you get Kristen, then you get Alice. I mean, it's like, how many franchises can say that they have like 3 great final girls? You know, another aspect is like, I really like the character development of her dad. I like the fact that in 4 he was kind of a jerk, right? But in this one, he's been sort of redeemed and he's changed. And it's kind of unique to be able to say like such a, you know, background character was given like such a nice little arc. You know, I really like those little elements. And like I said, the effects are awesome. I don't really like the design of Freddy. I think it looks bad. I love Robert Englund. I just want to say that first. I love Robert Englund. He is iconic. He made Freddy what he is today, right? But this is not my favorite Freddy. He is so goofy in this film, and like, I like goofy Freddy, but the film is so dark, and it's so like, it's the subject matter is so heavy that it's weird that he's so goofy. And you could say like, well, they were trying to balance it out, right? But I don't know, it just doesn't feel like he was on the same page with the director here. He's so over the top that it kind of is a little distracting, you know? I still enjoy it, you know, but like, it's just not, like I said, my favorite portrayal of Freddy, you know? But that being said, I think it's very underrated. I think it's a really good sequel. For being a 5th entry in a franchise, I think it's one of the better 5th entries. So, I really like 5. And it has definitely come up in my rankings over the years. Number 5. This is one that I also have an interesting relationship with. And that is Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Really enjoy this one. I think it's a solid sequel. I definitely think it's a step down from Dream Warriors. It definitely feels like the leftovers of Dream Warriors. And something I would say that would be like a gripe about this franchise is that like they set up pretty good characters and then they just kill them all off. And you're left with like one person at the end, and it's like, that's just not going to translate well into furthering the franchise down the road. Like, that's gonna run out of steam. Like, you want to try to salvage a couple of those good characters. You don't want to just like kill them all. And I think that kind of caught up with them. You know, we kind of got tired of that rinse, lather, repeat routine where it's like all these people die and one person survives, and it's just kind of like a little exhausting, you know? Especially when you grow to like some of these characters and they just all get disposed of, you know? So I think they could have put more like fodder in there without straight up just killing all the good characters. So that's one gripe I would have. But this entry has some incredible effects. The Cockroach Hotel sequence is incredible. Love that. I think Freddy's design is good. I like it. I think it's solid. This is kind of where he starts to turn more into like MTV Freddy, where he's that balance is more in favor of the comedy. And sometimes it lands, sometimes it doesn't for me, you know. Overall, I still really enjoy Dream Master. Kristen's awesome. I think she's an incredible final girl. The demise of Freddy is great. Absolutely love the effects of the hands coming out of his body. Really think that's incredible. And like I said, I really do enjoy this one, but this is kind of where the franchise starts to turn a little bit. I still feel like it's a solid sequel, so but I've never really loved it. It's just one of those ones that's kind of, you know, middle of the road for me. I enjoy it, I like it, don't love it, but it's solid. It's definitely a solid sequel. Number 4. This is another interesting one for me. Number 4, New Nightmare. I respect the hell out of this film. The fact that it is as good as it is honestly impressive. Love that Wes Craven came back. Love that he did something different. This introduced the meta themes to mainstream horror. Not saying it's like the pioneer. I mean, Jason Lives kind of has some meta elements to it, right? But like, this whole film is meta, and it's kind of the precursor to Scream, right? So really like New Nightmare. Really like the design of Freddy. Would have liked to have more kills in it. You know, it doesn't have that many kills in the film, and it's not actually Freddy, and that's kind of what, you know, I wouldn't say it pulls it down for me. It's just, to me, it's not that rewatchable. You know, it just doesn't feel like the franchise, and I know he was actively trying to make it feel different, fresh, and unique, which I respect, right? And this is a good film, but I just don't find myself rewatching New Nightmare a lot, right? Like I said, really like the design of Freddy, really like the concept, really like that get Heather Langenkamp back. I like that she's playing herself, John Saxon. There's some really awesome elements here to the plot, and just kind of the tone where it's essentially, you know, it's very meta, and you know, I do really enjoy New Nightmare, but like I said, you know, you get to the final act here and there's some awesome effects, right? But the climax is a little bit wonky. It doesn't entirely work for me. But I do really enjoy it, and that's why it's up there for me. You know, I just don't really find myself coming back to it a lot. But that doesn't mean that I don't think it's a really good Nightmare on Elm Street entry. So that is why it is at number 4. Number 3. I love this film. This is one that to me has always been underrated, always been a black sheep of the franchise. Honestly, it's always kind of been hated. Like, I wouldn't even say it's been underrated. It's been openly hated for a long time. I think it's recently kind of gotten a reappraisal, and people are starting to come around to it. And that is Freddy's Revenge, Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I have always enjoyed this installment here. Hands down my favorite Freddy. This is 100% the scariest version of Freddy, period. He is mean, he is violent, and the design is so good. He's got those like pointed ears and the pointed nose. He's kind of got that like elf, like witch look to him. Really creepy. Like that there's a final guy in it, you know, and then the like undertones that they kind of cover in Scream Queens, Mark Patton's documentary there. I never really like saw those too much. I can see them now that they are like talking about it, and that's awesome. I think that's great, right? But I never felt like they were that. There's sequences that are pretty prominent, right? But like, I don't know, I didn't really, it wasn't at least distracting to me, and it never like changed my experience with the film. You know, I think that what pulls it down is just the climax is a little bit rushed. I know that they kind of ran out of money and had to kind of, you know, live with some kind of cheap effects with the baby face dogs and stuff like that. But like Freddy coming into the real world, that never bothered me, you know, because I feel like that's something he would want to try to explore at some point, right? And you say like, well, how did he have the same powers that as he did in the dream world? Well, I don't know. I kind of looked at Jesse as like a conduit to where it was essentially like, because he went through Jesse, he's using Jesse as basically his anchor to the dream world, essentially. I don't know. For some reason, it just worked for me, and it didn't really bother me a whole lot. You know, the pool scene where he's just hacking through these kids, love it. You know, love when he says, "You're all my children now," and the fire's right behind him. Absolutely love it. I think it's such a fun detour for the franchise. In the ending where he's just driving off into the desert, that's such a creepy like ending. Absolutely love it. Super underrated. Really hope that it continues to gain the following that it has gained. And it has definitely risen up my rankings. I've always liked it, but it's definitely come up there for me. So right now it is at number 3. Number 2. This is such an incredible film. I love this film, love the soundtrack. I don't have a whole lot of complaints about it, and that is Dream Warriors, Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Perfect sequel, so good. Love the characters in this film. You get, in my opinion, the best like blend of comedic Freddy and sadistic, serious Freddy, where it's like he's saying jokes, but there's malicious intent and there's anger. You know, like when he says "Welcome to Primetime, bitch," he's basically taking your like her dream and like turning it against her and killing her, and like that's pretty dark. It's not really even, I wouldn't even necessarily say, I guess it's a joke, but it's pretty damn mean-spirited. You know, when he kills the kid in the wheelchair, he's, you know, he just stabs him in the fucking heart. It's like, damn, dude. He says, "I don't believe in fairy tales." It's like, oh, wow, you know. Kills the one girl with, like, the syringes, who was, like, a recovering, like, addict. Pretty dark kills in this film. You know, if I had a complaint, it would be that they dispatched the Dream Warriors pretty quickly. You know, they build this up and it just kind of is dispatched, and it's a little disappointing because it's like their powers are pretty cool, you know, and I would have liked to see them kind of stand more of a chance against Freddy. I do like that it kind of further builds his strength to where it's like, man, he's super unstoppable, right? But, you know, like I said, it's kind of like it feels a little bit like a wasted opportunity. But you get Heather Langenkamp back as Nancy. I think that's great. You know, it's awesome to see her back. I wouldn't say she's my favorite final girl, though. You know, I really like Alice. I like Kristen, and I like Nancy. I do. I don't know what it is. I guess it's just kind of the way Heather Langenkamp delivers her lines. I wouldn't say she's a good actress. I don't love her style. It's very breathy and very like melodramatic and drawn out, and I like that, but it's not my favorite, right? Still think she's good. Love seeing her back as Nancy. She really slips into this role of being older, while not, she like looks much older than she actually is in the film. And I think that's just a testament to her acting. I think that she does a nice job in it. You know, you get John Saxon back. There's some incredible dream sequences. Love when you get the giant Freddy head. That is such an incredible practical effect. Love the skeleton Freddy, you know. Just the nightmare sequences are so good. You know, you get Joey. I've always found it to be funny that his like teardrop like appears and disappears throughout the film. It's like, what was that what was the purpose of that? You know, he's like, it's weird. He's like wearing like a polo, and he's like really like well dressed, and he's got like a strange teardrop like tattoo, and then it just like disappears. It's like, what is that? All the characters are great. I really like Kristen. I think that she's great. She's a really good final girl, you know, and I was fine with her being recasted by Tuesday Night in 4. You know, I think that I really enjoy that character. I think it was an interesting twist of fate that Freddy, you know, made it look like she was trying to commit suicide. I think that's pretty sadistic. Like I said, there's some really sadistic themes in this film, but it has that blend of comedy without going too far, right? I think it's got the perfect blend. You know, it took elements from Freddy's Revenge, added some more humor to it, you know, because they wanted to kind of go more on the lighter note, because Freddy's Revenge didn't do that well. So I think that they really succeed here. Dream Warriors, I absolutely love the soundtrack here. I can't say enough good things about this film. It's 100% my favorite Nightmare sequel, and I don't see that ever changing. I also really like that they bring back John Saxon, and he's not like this great dad. He's kind of washed up, and it's kind of a quick, like, you know, small role, and I thought that was actually kind of an interesting choice, you know. And at the end of the day, he's kind of like a coward. Like, he makes like a cowardly choice, you know. He's only really helping them because he's kind of being not forced, but it, like, you know, cornered into doing it, right? He's trying to leave at any chance he can get, which is actually kind of creepy, because it's like everybody's like scared of the legend of Freddy, right? So the demise of Freddy like is great in this film. I cannot say enough good things about this entry. So absolutely love Dream Warriors. That is why it is number 2. Number 1, the OG, Nightmare on Elm Street. This is one that started it all. It's not perfect, but I really love it. I love the dark, gritty nature of it, and I really like this version of Freddy. It's not my favorite Freddy design. I really like it, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite. I do really like this version of him, though, because he feels less funny and more scary and creepy and like almost like pervy. I don't know. It's like there's just more about him that's more mysterious. He doesn't talk as much. Really love this version of Freddy. Probably some of the best kills in the franchise are in this film here. I mean, you know, from Tina's death, which is absolutely iconic, to, you know, her getting dragged down the hallway, you know, Glenn getting sucked into the bed and just spewing out the blood. That's incredible, you know. I can't say enough good things about this film. I can't say enough that hasn't already been said about it. Robert Englund is absolutely iconic as Freddy. I cannot even imagine anybody else as him, and we got somebody else. I wouldn't even say that Haley was bad, but like, I don't see anybody really measuring up to what Robert Englund did. It's going to be damn tough. I have some ideas of what they could do down the road for it, but the original is so iconic. I would say like the ending is kind of weak, you know, and that wasn't even Wes's original ending. You know, they kind of wanted it to end on a button, and that's why it looks so fake, because it was like a reshoot, right? The original ending was just supposed to be the, you know, car top going up, and it's like the pattern of Freddy's sweatshirt, right? So I like the more like understated ending, but like I said, love this film, love this franchise. It's always been like surprising to me that this franchise hasn't had the legs that some of these other franchises have had, like, you know, Friday and Nightmare. It's surprising that this has the least amount of films, because I think the source material, I think that the concept is so much richer than those two other franchises I just mentioned, to just have more and more sequels and like build out this like world. It's a dream world. You can do anything with it. So it's always kind of been like surprising that they haven't, it just has not had the legs that like Friday or Halloween have had. What I would love to see in a new Nightmare film, I think the way you could do it without having it be like a remake, I'd love to see England back, obviously. It would be cool if you tapped into the fact that it's been years since we had last had a Nightmare film. So if you kind of tapped into that and you basically had Freddy, who has been forgotten and he's weak, he is not powerful because nobody remembers his like reign of terror, right? So he has no power. So kids go into these dreams, they see this guy and they just kind of like beat up on him, and it's like this fun thing that these kids do, right? And you kind of like center the plot around this like group of outcast kids who kind of get bullied and essentially kind of catch wind of what Freddy did in a very vague sense, and basically plot to lure one of their like bullies into the dream and like help Freddy kill him. They don't really know that it's that it's for real, you know, they don't really know all the specifics that we as an audience know. So this happens and they kind of accidentally unleash Freddy back into the consciousness of Springwood. I think that would be a cool way to do it. It kind of would be like you could give it the legacy sequel route without feeling like a Force Awakens type formula of like, oh, this is a legacy sequel, but it's basically a light reboot, you know, and we're just gonna call it a Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, they better not call it that, you know. But honestly, I don't even know if we're gonna get one. It's been so damn long since not only getting a Nightmare film, but getting a fucking like decent physical media release, for God's sake. It's like, I don't know what the deal is with Warner Brothers, if they're just like trying to just, you know, forget this franchise. But wow, like I just don't understand like why they don't put anything into this franchise. And the fans are so hardcore. Like, Nightmare fans are clamoring for a decent release of these films, because this is honestly inexcusable for this franchise. This is such an iconic franchise that deserves so much better. And if we ever get an iconic box set, I will be first in line for that thing. I don't care what it costs. I'm buying that. Scream Factory tried, and Warner Brothers pulled it out from underneath them. So I'll tell you what, Warner Brothers better put out a damn good box set. But I'm not confident in that because it doesn't really feel like they have the passion, honestly, you know. But all that being said, looking forward to the new 4K. I will definitely be getting that. Love this franchise. I can't get enough of it. What are your guys' picks? What are your favorite? What are your least favorite? Let me know in the comments. Till then, that's it for now. Peace.